Welcome to the Starr Chamber. I'm Senator Bruce Starr. I have the privilege of representing District 12, which is the majority of Yamhill and Polk counties. Today, we have a fantastic opportunity for you to learn a little bit about an issue and an individual. Lois Anderson, the Executive Director of Oregon Right to Life, joins us today to talk about creating a culture of life in Oregon. Well, Lois Anderson, sitting here with us this morning. When I first met Lois Anderson, she was Lois Dunham.
That's right.
And we were students at the esteemed institution in downtown Portland, Portland State University.
That's a little bizarre, isn't it? That we've known each other that long.
It is a little bizarre. Yeah, at the time, I think you were a couple of years ahead of me.
Yes.
And when we first met, I believe you were the Portland State College Republican chair.
I was. And I think that I had just finished a stint as state chair, which was, that was a very long time ago.
A very long time ago.
My memories are a little fuzzy, but it was actually, I really enjoyed my time at Portland State. Yeah. I don't know, honestly, what it's like now.
It's different.
It's a lot different, probably, but I had a blast. I was in student government, did college Republicans. I had friends from all stripes and varieties of political and cultural beliefs, and right. I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
Yeah. And you got a degree in?
I got a degree in history.
Yeah.
And I could have had a minor in political science. I had enough credits, but I was going to have to take one more seminar. I just could not take one more seminar. So yeah, history it is.
History it is. Yeah. So my experience is, I think there was one person who was the chair of the College Republicans between you and I. And then I think the second year, and I think you had graduated at that point. Yeah. I became the chair of the Portland State College Republicans. And there's no question that Lois was a way better chair, way better organized, ran a way better club than I did. But that is our shared history.
Yeah.
And part of that too is Dorchester.
Yes.
The Dorchester Conference. I remember College Republicans hosted, one of those late night, parties that
we did.
That Dorchester is famous for. Way back in the day at the beach. And, again, we our paths crossed there as well. So
my claim to fame is that Speaker Larry Campbell dropped by our party.
There you go.
So
hey,
there was that.
Must have been doing something right. Yeah, that's awesome. So, fast track, what, 40 years?
About that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, maybe a little less.
Yeah. So obviously, both have continued to be in the political circles. So obviously, Lois Dunham became Lois Anderson. Lois Anderson with her husband Bruce. What a great name!
I know, right?
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah. Fantastic name.
Created a fantastic little family. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, we have 4 kids, and we have 2 boys and 2 girls.
Perfect.
Which was, we didn't have anything to do with that, but,
yeah.
And they are all grown. Our youngest is a junior at Oregon State.
Oh, wow.
He's in the Army ROTC program and in the National Guard. We're extremely proud of him.
That's fantastic.
And so we have they have all graduated from college. So we feel like they've all got driver's license. They all graduated from high school, and pretty soon they all will have a college degree. So we feel like that's an accomplishment. Right. But more importantly, they're all amazing people. They're loving, and they're involved in their communities, and just fun to talk to. It's really fun when your kids grow up and they're like, cool.
They're good.
And they think you're cool, and you want to have fun together. So that has been a real joy. I think that parenthood is just, it really is the best. It's hard at times, those years. There's some years and sometimes that even as adults, you're you're going through, you're feeling things with them, but it's just the joys way outweigh that. And now we're grandparents.
Oh my goodness.
And the grandparent gig is really the best.
Well, so your professional path, post college, young family, you found yourself with an opportunity to do what?
Well, I did a lot of political work. So I went straight after college into working at the Capitol and working on campaigns, and kind of at that time you didn't have annual sessions. So
Right.
there was this pattern of you work on a campaign, you work in the building, you work on a campaign, and one thing that people may be surprised at is it's actually really family friendly. I did a lot of those jobs with a baby on my hip, late night computer work, phone calls while I was driving kids to soccer practice, hands free, of course. But it really, I was able to use those skills that I developed before we had kids and really integrate that into our family in a way that made sense. So I did everything from coordinating small fundraisers to data entry to campaign management, legislative assistant, just like for years. And then when I was pregnant with my third baby, I had started to get involved with Oregon Right to Life.
Right.
And one of the public affairs firms that I worked with, they were a client. And so I started working with them, and they needed a political director basically, and were willing for me to do it part-time and bring baby to work and all those things. And so that was 25 years ago.
Wow.
That I made that shift from the political campaign legislative staff work to working at Oregon Right to Life.
And what, Gail Atterbury was the
Atterbury was the
executive
executive director
at the time? Yeah.
Yeah, and she was executive director for 22 years.
Wow.
And then I stepped into that role. Well, I mean, I didn't step in. The board interviewed me and hired me. I didn't just walk into it.
Right.
But in
So you
September,
were definitely a known entity.
Yeah, for sure. And September of 2017 is when I started that.
17. So you're 8 years or so into it.
Which is wild. It's gone really, really fast.
Yeah. Well, life goes fast.
That's true. It's interesting too. Working in the organization in the PAC for so long, you figure you know the ins and outs and you know everything about an organization. My learning curve was like this. There's so much that Oregon Right to Life does that I kind of knew about, but being in the nuts and bolts of it has really been a big learning experience for me, which probably was a little surprising, but it's also been great. It's been really satisfying.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So we are podcasting from the great state of Oregon. Yeah. Where we were both born and raised. And Oregon is a challenging place politically to be conservative, to be Republican, and should we say to be pro-life? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what gives you hope? I mean, it's got to be tough to have a role where I think your tagline is everybody needs a voice, or everybody needs an advocate. Mm-hmm. What gives you hope? What motivates you to get up every morning and say, I'm going to take this fight to Oregonians, and I'm going to advocate to, policymakers? What motivates that? How do you reconcile those, I guess?
Well, I think personality-wise, I've always loved challenges, so I think that's part of it. And maybe the Oregonian in me that is a motivation. But I have to say, I mean, it might sound cliche, but it really is about the people. And so when I'm meeting and interacting with pro-life Oregonians, they're a pretty amazing lot. They're also resilient, perseverant, hopeful, and they're just doing things in their daily life that bring life to Oregon. Honestly, they are helping women. They are helping babies. They are housing them. They are giving them diapers. They are providing formula and pregnancy tests and ultrasounds. And in their churches, they're providing moms groups and many other ministries. And I think that is really the thing that gets me up in the morning. They're also going door to door, like right now, for school board candidates.
Right.
You know, people that don't have kids in school, they're out there promoting pro-life candidates and getting engaged in their community because they care about their families, their communities, they care about their state. And so that is really what gives me hope. It's about, Mother Teresa said it, and actually Senator Mark Hatfield liked to say it as well, is that I'm paraphrasing it, but our job is basically to do the work, to be faithful in the work that we have. And the results are not up to us.
Right.
We work toward the results, but that's not the daily work. The daily work is being faithful to what we know is true and good and what the next thing is that we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a scriptural reference there.
Yes,
If I knew what that Bible verse is, I would quote it, but I know it's there somewhere. So obviously I serve in the legislature now, served in the legislature previously. Every session, Oregon Right to Life, introduces pro-life legislation. What's the point?
Well, I think the point is offering an alternative. So if we never propose policies or ideas that are pro-life policies and pro-life ideas, we get defined by people who don't understand where we're coming from. And so I think it's really important to show the Oregonians, voters, constituents, that these bills are actually the kinds of things that we're going to work on.
Right.
If you put pro-life people in charge of Oregon. I mean, I sincerely, fundamentally believe that Oregon is going to be in a better place for a whole host of reasons, and this is one of them. We're going to take steps to protect life, and so that's why. And ideas need to be out there. They need to be discussed. They need to be reviewed.
Yep.
That's an important part of the process, even if it.
Yep.
They die every year.
100%.
Well, there's a lot of good stuff that dies every year.
I know. My name's on a lot of that, unfortunately. So what's the long-term goal for pro-life legislation?
For pro-life legislation, our theme has kind of coalesced into this tagline, support her, protect them. So our goal is we have a holistic viewpoint where it's about supporting moms and understanding that they need support throughout pregnancy, after pregnancy, and protecting the life of the unborn child. We all start the same way.
Right.
There's none of us that just popped out as adults or as babies or as toddlers. We all began the same way at that moment of fertilization. We grew, and we're protected, and that's what pregnancy's for. And then we were born. And right now in Oregon, that right to life before birth is abridged. And that has all kinds of negative consequences for our culture. And so we want to work to bring awareness to that. It's really important if you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And then to work toward policies that are broadly supported, even by people that may consider themselves to be pro-choice. That's our approach, and realizing that politics is the art of the possible.
Right.
And so that's really our strategy, and our long-term goals are to work on those things that most Oregonians agree on when it comes to protecting babies at certain gestational times, or what moms need, what babies need, and just to keep working on that together in more of a unified effort.
Yeah, it seems like you're talking about kind of the overall culture of life. I mean,
yes.
Comment on that.
Yes. Well, I define a culture of life as an Oregon where life-saving, life-sustaining, life-affirming decisions are supported. So that's a big vision. Oregon Right to Life really has just a lane in that. But I want to live in a place like that. It's a place where human beings flourish, where families flourish, and on a whole host of ways.
Right.
And it really does start with how we view each other. What's your value to our culture? You have infinite value. Right. So, and everybody has infinite value, whether you're 3 months old in utero, or whether you're 3 months old baby, or whether you're 90 years old. My dad's going to turn 93 in December. He's an infinitely valuable person, not only to me and my family, but to the people around him. And so that I want to live in a place like that.
Right.
And right now, Oregon
maybe it's not quite like that.
isn't quite like that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of pieces to that. Oregon Right to Life has one piece, but also I see that we're a leader in that. We can. I know it sounds cliche, but we can cast that vision and hopefully bring people along.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So, I mean, we're obviously not immune to the political campaigns, and inevitably, a pro-life candidate is labeled by their opponent as an extremist. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I think it's important for pro-life candidates to define themselves, to talk about what it means to be pro-life. And that is there's a lot of ways to do that, a lot of creative ways to do that. But I really think it's important in just the political world to make sure that you've defined yourself, because if you don't define yourself, then your opponent is going to define you.
Yeah.
And when pro-life candidates are attacked as being extreme, I think it is a completely valid thing to say back. I don't know what you think is extreme, but I think it's extreme to support bills like House Bill 2002 in its original form from 2023, which would have allowed a child at any age to procure an abortion for themselves with no parental involvement
whatsoever.
Yeah. Even in committee, the question was asked, would that mean a 10-year-old? And Legislative Council answered yes.
Right.
I don't think there's anybody in Oregon who thinks that's a good idea.
Right. Exactly.
That's extreme.
That is.
It's extreme to say that we have legal late-term abortion in Oregon. That means that there is a good chance that babies are surviving abortion. It happens. And we don't provide any protection for that infant that survived the abortion that now is born. There's no legal protection.
So you're talking about the Born Alive Act.
I am. Yeah. So I think on both ends of that, the extremism needs to be communicated, that it's actually the current pro-abortion, pro-choice movement in Oregon. And I'm being specific about that because it's not the same everywhere. But here in Oregon, they have taken what I think is actually an extreme position, which is there should be absolutely no limit to any abortion decision. Period. And abortion providers should be shielded and protected in a way that other doctors who do other procedures are not. And
Oregon taxpayers pay for it. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think one of the things that the opponents would say, well, that never happens. They're talking about something that never occurs. So what do you say to that?
Yeah. Well, we know that it does occur. I point people to the story of Amy Miles, who lives in Astoria. And her mother tried to did procure a late-term abortion in Southern Oregon, and she survived that abortion.
Wow.
And what she's been able to piece together from her story is that the abortion provider kind of freaked out and left. And a person that was assisting him got her to the hospital, and eventually her parents adopted her adoptive parents.
Wow.
She does have some physical challenges and disabilities from that experience. So it does happen. And when you have late-term abortions, sometimes human beings are designed to live.
Right.
Sometimes you are going to not be you're not going to be successful in completing that abortion. So I think that even if it happens once, isn't one person's life worth having a law that says that doctor has to provide treatment?
And if it didn't happen, then let's just make sure it doesn't occur and provide protection for these little ones.
Yeah.
So
yes.
I mean, that's the telling fact right there. the last thing, well, they're not moving the bill.
Yeah. Yes, they're not moving the bill, and it is curious because it doesn't have anything to do with. It's not going to limit any abortions.
Right. So one of the I guess trigger points people talk about in this issue is pain capable. Talk a little bit about what that means.
Well, there's a lot of medical research into babies in utero for a variety of different reasons.
Of course.
And one of the areas of research that's been happening for quite a while is when are they able to feel pain, and when do they acknowledge pain where their brains are developed enough. And one of the reasons why they've done that is because of the development of in utero surgeries to correct things like spina bifida. So doctors need to know, pain causes stress, which can limit the success of those kinds of surgeries. And so they needed to know, they needed to do more research about it. And what they found, there's some research that says that babies feel pain as early as 12 weeks.
Wow.
Which is very early, and also during a period of time when most abortions actually occur. But the consensus has been at about 15 weeks gestation. And so for us, the argument is that most people understand that causing pain to someone on purpose shouldn't be something that human beings do to each other.
Right.
And we have actual laws about I can't come and just...
You can't come punch me in the face.
I can't come punch you in the face without some consequences.
Right.
And so it's similar with babies in utero. Is the procedure of abortion after 15 weeks is honestly pretty horrific, and it does cause pain. And so as Oregonians, we should limit that. We should stop that. It shouldn't be happening here.
Yeah. It seems like a number of other states have passed restrictions on abortion. Is that 15 weeks is kind of the, I don't know, I want to say it's the norm, but is that the standard that I can't say all, but a lot of states have put in their law?
Many states have. I don't have the number on the tip of my tongue, but it is one of the standards that has been passed throughout the country.
And really it's because that pain, that's kind of where
right.
I guess the medical community has come down and said, this is the time when babies feel pain.
Yeah. Yes.
So informed consent is something that Oregon Right to Life has pursued for decades. Talk a little bit about what that means.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we found from talking to women that have had abortions is that there's not, frequently they're not receiving full informed consent about what the procedures are, what the gestation of their baby is. And informed consent is a pretty standard medical, it's
what doctors do before they operate on you. They tell you all of the things that could go wrong or potentially all the side effects. I mean, those are the things that doctors inform the patient prior to the procedure.
Exactly.
And they're not doing that necessarily as it relates to this particular procedure.
That's right. They're not. And there have been other procedures along the way. Many of them have been focused on women over the years, like hysterectomies. That was something that was actually the medical community kind of came around and are regulating themselves. But there was legislation decades ago to mandate that. So I think that what we want in that legislation is for mothers to be fully informed, and also for the physicians, for the provider that are doing the procedure, that they also are that there's a relationship of responsibility. And what we have found just from talking to women who have had abortions in Oregon and other places, there's a lot of rush to it. It's, you need to do it now. You don't need just sign here. And there isn't a lot of that respectful dialogue that's happening. And I think just from that putting into place a standard that everyone needs to follow, we think in the end will be life-saving for women. And also, if a woman decides to go through with an abortion after she's had all of that information, the post-abortion trauma that we also understand happens, we think that it can help with that as well. And of course, we want her to choose life.
Right.
That is what we want. But we want to hold the medical establishment that are willing to do abortions to a certain standard. And it's important.
Yeah. If you're a physician who doesn't want to perform abortions, is there a conscience clause that allows for physicians? Basically, I'm not exactly sure how that works in a clinic or wherever, but are physicians able to opt out of doing these procedures?
It depends.
Yeah.
So there is a federal law, and that is enforced sort of based on who's in the White House.
Yeah.
There aren't clear laws in Oregon that really back up a provider that doesn't want to participate in abortion. So it depends on who they work for, the clinic, the hospital, the health system that they're working for, to the level that those conscience protections are being honored or would be challenged. And it's pretty difficult for pro-life medical providers right now, and not just in Oregon, but other
just
places.
The physician, but attending nurse or the assistant or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean they may be in a more tenuous position than the physician potentially.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yes, and there has to be assistance. And also, one thing we haven't talked about yet or touched on is chemical abortions. So the majority of abortions now in Oregon and across the country are committed through actual taking medication. And so there's pharmacists involved with that, and
right.
In addition to the prescriber. And so it's difficult for them to be able to establish a practice and be able to practice according to their conscience. And I don't think that should be the case.
Right.
I think in America, we should be able to live according to our conscience.
So that brings up, I remember in my previous legislative service, I served in the legislature, as you know, from 99 through 2014. It seems like whenever there was an issue that dealt with faith and dealt with issues of conscience, that the legislature, at least at that time, would create that caveat. And it was something especially that, the Catholic community back then at least had a pretty, what's the right word, effective lobby in the building. And I remember them being in the room and saying, hey, you have to exempt, the Catholic charities, you got to exempt our Catholic hospitals from these various rules. In the last decade or so, have some of those things been undone in the legislature, or because I haven't been there for a decade?
Yeah.
Or is there still in the legislature, you can get those carve outs for, in peoples of faith, organizations of faith? What do you know anything about that? Can you comment on that?
The only ones that I'm really familiar with are surrounding life issues or abortion, assisted suicide. And it has been more difficult because the argument basically has been these procedures are a human right or a right. So even your religious beliefs or your moral philosophical beliefs can't trump this human right, which is, of course, really backwards.
Right.
And so that's been more of a push. And I think because of the way the legislature has been run, I'm sure that you've seen it after coming back from a decade out of it. It is not a representative democracy. Things are happening in the legislature where, the public is not informed. They don't have the ability to give their opinions, and even legislators themselves are cut out of the process. And so I think that's a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I think it matters because even the opportunity to come and say, hey, this is an issue, isn't even there in the bills passed. And then you get the gut and stuff amendment, an hour and a half before the hearing or the work session, and the next thing you know, it's slammed into the bill and it's moved to the floor or moved to Ways and Means or whatever. So exactly. There's very little. There's not this broad discussion, engaging the public, engaging legal experts, having this discussion about this policy. It's just like, we've decided that we're going to do this, and we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that makes it a lot more difficult to have those kinds of conscience protection discussions,
right.
Because they are philosophical, they are religious. And so it takes a little while to help people understand the importance of them. And we just don't get that time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, historically in Oregon, the political pendulum, swung back and forth, it hasn't swung back lately. It's swung one way, and the vast majority of legislators serving today have never served in the minority. And there's a couple majority members who have, but for the most part, they have not. So they just think that this is the way it always is, and how you treat the minority matters, or it should. Hopefully that'll change in the future.
So.
The pendulum will swing back. I'm sure of it. Adoption awareness. That's something, obviously you already talked about how you look at this issue kind of broadly. Talk a little bit about adoption.
Well, I love the fact that Representative Elmer has taken her personal, experience, which is really a beautiful story, and done something remarkable, which is to have this bipartisan support for an Adoption Awareness Day. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's beautiful. Adoption is a beautiful solution. Not that it's not difficult, not that there's not, separation and possible hurt there, but not every parent is ready to parent when a baby is born. And there are families who are ready and waiting and have not been able to have a child naturally or for other reasons. There's many adoptive families who are blended families. They have adopted kids and they have children that they've birthed, and it's a beautiful family. So I think the more that we can talk about adoption as an option for families that need to,
for whatever reason.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. For whatever reason. And to make it an option that's accepted and honored and celebrated.
And can we make it easier?
Yeah. And that's been actually a little bit of a mystery to figure out, because making it easier while still being very protective of the child is really important. So I would love to see the legislature dig into those weeds a bit and hear from adoptive families from all sides and see if there's some changes that can be made to make that simpler.
Yeah, and it's all about creating this culture of life.
Exactly.
Yeah. Every Mother Matters Act. So I'm reading it. I don't know what it means.
Well, it's a set of bills that Representative Bobby Levy introduced.
Okay.
And it's basically establishing a hotline, which would be texting or calling, where a mother could just figure out what kind of resources are available to her. And would be something that would be provided to her if she sought an abortion, making sure that she understands that she's not alone, that there are community resources, and then funding it. It's kind of a a package of bills to do that. It's a small step again in that culture of life that I know when I had my babies, there was this program where we got these cute little crocheted booties from people in the community. And I had a visit from a woman who would come and give me information about, well, your baby is a month old. This is what they should be doing. And is there anything you need? And kind of checking in on me. And as a new mom, even though I had a great support system, it was wonderful to know that my community really cared about me. I thought this is a place where my kids are going to be cherished. And that was really an encouraging thing. And so I think that this kind of program is just a step in that direction, and we'd love to see the state adopt it.
So, Representative Levy, are the bills moving? Or have they? No,
they didn't. They didn't
move. That is unfortunate.
Yeah,
but not surprising.
Yeah. So something we're doing. I brought a prop.
Oh, good.
So something we're doing at Oregon Right to Life is kind of creating our own.
Perfect.
It's not a hotline yet, but it'll be online. So these are resource guides.
Wonderful.
And we're working on creating them for every either county or region in the state. And it's full of resources for pregnant moms and families. Everything from housing and addictions services to food banks and clothing swaps, pregnancy centers, maternity homes. So we're really excited about that. Sometimes you can do things without the legislature.
You don't need a law. Imagine that. Excuse me. You don't need a law to do good things. So I think one of the underlying themes of our conversation this morning is we don't give up.
Right.
We don't give up.
Yeah.
And you've been in the political world for, I'm going to say 40 years, and you haven't given up. You fought for conservative values. You were pro-life before you were working for Oregon Right to Life. But you've been in the fight and you're not giving up. And I've been in the fight, and out of the fight, but still stayed in it because, in your specific world, babies are worth fighting for, right?
That's right.
Life is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that you haven't given up and that you lead an organization that stays in the fight. And I'm grateful that there are so many other Oregonians that are joining in that, both on the issue of life, but generally on fighting for Oregon, fighting for this great place that we live. Yeah. Phenomenal place that we live. If only we had different leadership. Mm-hmm. Because by virtually every statistic that's out there, Oregon is failing. And we shouldn't be, because we have all the things that that you would need to have an amazing place. So thank you for staying in the fight. Look forward to continue to fight with you, alongside you. And I really appreciate the time you spent with us this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity, Bruce. And thank you for all that you've done for our state and continue to do. We're just warriors that keep going.
Yep. Keep going. Great. Thank you.